Hello, good to see you again.
Good to see you too. How have you been?
I'm swell. Our semester's just ended, so a sigh of relief from my part with online education per se.
Well, my semester just started. So, on that front, I think we're both working opposite to each other. Very recently, a very fun opportunity came my way. So, I was invited to a online negotiation competition. How cool is that?
That is something really, and it's such a change from how regular tournaments work. It's an entirely different ballgame. There's
Absolutely.
not so much about body language, but like staring into your eyes and being like, is this person telling the truth or not? Which is really creepy and difficult to get used to.
Well, it got me reminded of all of these physical competitions that we've done. I mean, the ICC Paris, the INC Tokyo, the Singapore competition. It's just so different than doing it virtually. I mean, hi, I met you in Dubai and now I'm meeting you over Skype.
It certainly brought the world closer, and it's an entirely different ballgame. In fact, there's a different level of preparation that you need for doing things online, and just dealing with the nerves of it is something that I find really complicated. Like,
Oh,
what do you do when it comes to like anxiety before rounds and things like that?
well, I think something that really helps is being prepared. So, just having a very clear structure in mind as to how you want the negotiation to lead, but also at the same time being ready to be flexible in your approach. So, in case you see the conversation going on to a different side in the actual room, you should be flexible enough to, well, just adjust to that. And I think that's very important for me in my competitions. That's what I do. I stay prepared, but at the same time, I have this flexible approach before entering into the negotiation room. But what about you? What do you do for, well, just curbing that
Mm,
before competition anxiety?
So I actually get fairly nervous before anything. It's a debilitating degree of stage fright. But what I often do is hum to myself the song from The Sound of Music, Raindrops on Roses and Whiskers on Kittens. So, it's really like whenever you're thinking of the worst that can happen in the round, there are still so many other good things.
Mhm.
And it's especially important for me because regardless of how well I prep for a round and whatever I do, I am not the most business or commerce minded person. So I have to keep reminding myself of those considerations. So something that I always try and remind myself whenever I do a competition or a round is that there's a big distinction between being confident about what you're doing and being sure. And being sure and having a game plan in mind is important, but you should check your confidence at the door. You shouldn't like bring that hubris with you into a round. So that's really how I try and go about it.
I think that's very interesting because I feel that ADR really gives you the space to have both of these traits and both of these personalities sit down on one table. So, like you mentioned, you may not be as business and commerce minded, but your opposition party might be. And ADR and mediation and negotiation really just gives you that space to, well, discuss possibilities which work in both of your favors. And the opposition might come up with a plan which you may not have thought of, and you might come up with a way to save the relationship which the opposition wasn't even thinking of. So I think that way, ADR is just very flexible, and one of the main reasons it's become such a popular dispute resolution mechanism.
That's very true. And you know what? Keeping that in mind, I think today, as an episode of our podcast, it's an excellent way to showcase what the new normal of ADR and negotiating is. Doing it online during a pandemic. And with that, we'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of D&D with ECI and talk to you about what we're doing this week. Today, we have with us two very special guests from different parts of the world that are going to be negotiating a problem online. And of course, we're keeping in touch with the times. The problem is online, the meat of the problem is online as well. We're talking about COVID and how different countries respond to it, in particular, in this case, the hospitality industry and how that's been affected by it. So, tourism and hospitality, of course, have come to a grinding halt with lockdowns around the world, and recovering from that will take time. We explore these foundations today for a nation that's heavily dependent on tourism, while also shining a lens onto the fact that COVID-19 hasn't occurred in isolation, and there are still other global factors that one needs to consider when charting out recoveries. And we hope that you will enjoy this round.
Today we have with us Laksh, who is a student at the National University of Juridical Sciences in Kolkata, India. And we have Dimitra, who is a law graduate from the Department of Law, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. She is currently a trainee at a law firm in Athens in Greece.
And today we have them representing, of course, the state that's representative of the nation of Utopia. Fun place to be in times of COVID. And their local chamber of commerce that are working together to come to a solution to the problem we have in front of us. So without much further ado, handing across to them to begin their round, and we wish them the very best of luck.
Good morning. My name is Regnald Raskit, and I have the honor to participate in today's negotiation with the Utopian Head of State under my capacity as the chairperson of the Utopian Chamber of Commerce. The upcoming negotiation is very crucial, not only for our chamber, but also for the future and prosperity of Utopia, which heavily relies on the implementation of efficient measures that would help the nation overcome the great difficulties that COVID-19 has created. In that light, it is of utmost importance for us to achieve a successful agreement and to ensure a cooperation based on trust. The Utopian Chamber wishes that a suitable compromise is arrived as soon as possible with regards to the terms of the reopening of the economy and the nation at large. If this compromise is not met, the Chamber is highly interested in proceeding with its invitation from the famous rock band U2, which would rent out the entire nation and take care of any immediate economic concerns while attempting to create and record a conceptual album called Utopia. Last but not least, it is of paramount importance to preserve a valuable ongoing relationship between the two parties. Therefore, I'm willing to negotiate in goodwill with the head of state and to establish a collaborative atmosphere. And in order to accomplish and satisfy the Chamber's goals, I have organized a thorough negotiation plan. During the negotiation plan, I would need to be adjustable to any legitimate concerns that might arise from the head of state, being willing to collaborate with the head of state for reaching the best possible outcome. With regards to my negotiating style, I will adopt a principle-based approach, trying to reach to an acceptable voluntary agreement. With regards to the priority of the Chamber's interests in the agenda, I will explore and understand the government's needs and interests. I will be willing to make meaningful concessions in the measure required to achieve an acceptable outcome, and I will cooperate with the head of state to work out the best possible solution. In order to discover the zone of possible agreement, I will be starting with an exploration stage so as to understand the government's interests, and then I will try to generate with the other party solutions of mutual gain. After discovering and evaluating the various alternatives, we shall create a solution that yields maximum benefits to both sides. However, at the same time, I will do my best to safeguard the Chamber's interests by consciously developing high expectations, and for that reason, I would be prepared to be persuasive and to demonstrate that both parties may need to make concessions. To this extent, one ethical issue arises, which is if I should share with the other party the difficulties of the execution of the U2 project. Despite the U2 project being an excellent plan, travel restrictions may create obstacles for the Bantu plan. I will refrain from any such acknowledgement in order to protect the Chamber's ultimatum. Besides, there are ways of overcoming this obstacle, which we can agree during the negotiation and to reach the deal. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. I think we've really been transported to Utopia, and we're again very grateful for having you with us today and participating in this. And we hope to learn a lot, and I'm sure our audience will also have a lot to say about the podcast. So with this, we are now going to invite our next guest, Laksh, who's going to be your counterpart for today, the head of state for the nation of Utopia. Thank you very much, Dimitri.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we now pause.
Now that we've heard from Dimitra and her side and her character and her pre-negotiation strategy, we move on to Marlene, who is being represented by Laksh today. Marlene, would you please share with us what is your pre-negotiation strategy and what is the mindset that you enter this negotiation with?
Hello there. My name is Marlene Dietler. I'm the elected head of the state of Utopia. Today, when I come to this negotiation, I have my goals very well set out. The primary goal I have at this juncture is the prevention of exploitation of the local industry and saving them from further being exploited by the capitalist hotels and the industry. Also, apart from that, when I come to this negotiation, my intention is to implement pandemic regulations in a certain way, which not only helps Utopia survive, flourish, at the same time helps gain its coffers a considerable amount of wealth as well. Throughout the negotiation, I believe that I'll be taking on certain things. My first agenda, my first method I'll be using would be to making the Reginald Rusket, the head of the Commerce Chamber, realize the situation of the local industry and how they have been suffering at the hands of the hotels from such a long period of time, and why this protection is important. And if not looked into, it will further detriment the entire country of Ethiopia. Furthermore, I would also be listing out that why tourism revival is important at this juncture by a method in which we can bring in the recovery patients from other countries and help them, because that's a primary strategy at this point of time, as there's no other way in which we can actually help our foreign exchange. Apart from that, I would also be focusing on the development, or actually sowing the seeds for a self-dependent industry, which is not too heavily, and I'd rather say dangerously, dependent on the external tourism industries and the hotels per se. And that is why, and that's my main agenda today, and that will be the first idea would be to explaining the head of the Commerce Chamber all these points, and then I'll be going further upon them to probably come toward a solution where the government, with its powers mentioned by the Constitution, goes towards a phase where it can convert the already existing infrastructure in these hotels to something which can be used by the patients, recovering patients from other neighboring countries. They can come here to Utopia, which can help them recover in a fashion just in the midst of nature. And that's our primary plan here, and while preserving the local business culture. And as we have recovered primarily from the past financial outbreak in the 2008, I'm very sure that we can recover from this also. But what is needed is a coherence and a joint structure, collaboration between all the sectors. I believe that my best possible alternative to an agreement would simply to be use these powers of the elected head to go about this. But I believe that I would be going towards negotiation to try and take up the support of the local industry, as it would play a pivotal role in the entire negotiation and for my schemes to exactly fall in place. The first alternative, I believe, to the negotiation today would be to go about the U2 options or the other suggestions by the Chamber of Commerce, while still strictly maintaining the norms of the COVID, because I certainly believe that our country is a microstate, though great in tourism and flora and fauna, not infrastructurally independent enough to handle such an outbreak. That will be more or less my procedure throughout the negotiation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marlene. I think we see a call for very strong and decisive leadership. It's now up to us to see how this plays out. And with that, of course, we'd welcome you to the beginning of this round of negotiation. Thank you very much, Marlene. We now request you to join the call along with...
Well, Pramit, now that we are going to be hearing these two negotiate on an online platform, I'm sure they're bound to make mistakes. I mean, I know for a fact, and I speak from experience, that no matter how prepared you are bound to make mistakes.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. And well, it's not to say that it's our place to judge what the people who are our peers. We're grateful to have them on this platform, which is why we thought, why don't we invite an expert, somebody who's been doing this for years and years and years and has a valuable trove of knowledge to share with us. So with that, for next week's episode of our podcast, we will have with us Mr. Tom Valenti, a mediator par excellence with over 20 years of experience in the field. And we invite him today to listen to the recording of this round and supply him, of course, with the general information and confidential information, so that we have perhaps the best informed opinion of how this problem should have been dealt with, how it was dealt with, what went right, what went wrong, what are the kinds of things we can look for improvement in, and of course, how to go about this when everything is online. With that, thank you for sticking with us for so long. And now let's tune into the main segment of our podcast, the negotiation round itself.
On that note, I would just like to say to our audience that today we'd like you to be judges as well. We'd like you to be as critical as possible of this negotiation round. Point out places where they could have done better. Point out places that they did do well. And you yourself can then check whether your criticism is in line with what Mr. Tom Mallenty also thinks.
Absolutely. Please line up with your feedback. We'll have a call for comments and questions going out on Instagram and other platforms. Please let us know what you think of this episode and the round itself. And we'll see how well those views pan out with the expert on call next time round.
With that, we lead into the negotiation.
And I believe that really for us to have like further brainstorming options and that for them to be likely acceptable and attractive to both of us, it would be very wise to focus on exchanging some information. So to start with what you already mentioned, could you please, I know that the government has been devising some plans lately to see what the reopening conditions, if this occurs, would be. Could you please share with me the recent updates on that matter?
Definitely, I can share that. And before I share that, there's like one thing I would like to, just set in context from narrative from my side to be very clear about that, what my intentions are here today. First of all, like as you said, that I'm really happy that we are here today and we've been collaborating for the past few weeks, and we've been actively working towards the betterment of our nation. And in the capacity of the elected head of the state of Ethiopia, I believe just in the best interest of all the people, be it the tourism industry, the local businessmen, and above all the people at hand. Their safety is of a primary utmost importance to me. I completely realize that. So just to give you an insight of what I feel very strongly about two issues, that is the safety and about the condition of the local industries. So in my childhood, my parents, the way I was brought up, I was brought up by my parents. So my parents basically shopkeepers, right? They were shopkeepers and they run a local business, right? We were not as good or not as thriving as the tourism industry was running, but yes, we used to earn our daily bit and we used to go out. We contributed to the economy, to the life of Ethiopia as much as we could. So coming to the table, what I believe the history I've seen at hand, I've seen this country literally falling apart at the financial crisis of 2008 and then gaining ground again. I believe that the tourism industry is well cemented, right? I believe what needs to be supported at this particular juncture is a collaboration between the tourism industry and the local businesses, while keeping in mind the safety of the people as something which is very pivotal towards going forward. I believe that the basic notion which got me elected, that was to make Utopia great again. That's what I'd be following here today again. So what I believe that we've been taking norms. I know they are kind of strict, they're kind of unprecedented in the history of Utopia. But to bring it out from the point of view of the government, the infrastructure we have, to very simply put it across the table, the number of beds we have in hotels are far, far more than the number we have in hospitals. If we do even have a single case of COVID in the country, we would not be able to sustain the health sector. The country would have an outbreak. And that is why we believe that these certain changes which we have made, the certain changes of having social distancing in restaurants, and we do agree that while the expenses are high and the taxes are high, but this is something which we have to do. The instructions of wearing masks in public all the time, I know it somewhere interrupts or, dismantles the culture of tourism in the country. But this is something which is very necessary to keep the country safe and going forward. And that is the basic idea behind these restrictions imposed by the government. Although the government, I promise you, doesn't want to disrupt the industry, doesn't want to disrupt any local businessmen in any manner. The Commerce Chambers knows it very well what our primary intention is. Our intention is to make the people happy, to help the country survive. It's our people above all, and that is why we value the safety that most.
Definitely. So Marlene, I can understand from the tone of your voice that safety and the protection of the health of our nation is of utmost importance for you. And as well, something that's very important for you is the protection also of the local businesses, which should also progress together with the tourism industry. And I would like to highlight to this extent that our interests co-align with each other. The Chamber of Commerce really also wants that we find a measure that would be really able to guarantee that there is health and prosperity, and that our nation can go through these struggles with the most efficient way. So I really agree with you on this point.
That's great to hear. And I very well know that the Chamber of Commerce does hold those kind of views again. So coming on the, since we know that some of our views are aligned and we are moving towards a better direction in ways of a conversation, what do you think should be of the primary concern? What do you wish to discuss first? Do you have any kind of things in mind? What you wish to go forward first?
So I would like to discuss a bit more and ask some more questions on what you said regarding to the policies of the government right now. So I heard on what you said before that tourism is well cemented in Utopia and it needs to be further protected as because as we both know, it's the #1 generator of the entire nation. Our entire economy is service-based and is completely dependent on the steady flow of the tourists to survive. So having set that ground on the importance of tourism, and having set also as a fundamental to our cooperation discussion that the public health and safety should be protected, you mentioned on masks and social distancing. So could you please elaborate a bit more on the social distancing measures that the government is discussing, and if possible, give me an insight of how will these measures be able not to damage the tourism sector?
All right, definitely, I would go about that. So the basic measure of the government for the social distancing, apart from maintaining social distancing at all certain times in public and even the private properties, the basic idea, especially in restaurants, malls, and all other tourism hotspots, is that we intend to maintain a minimum of 3 feet gap between tables, right? And that is something we believe is very important, firstly, because as prescribed by the World Health Organization and many of its guidelines, as been noted by various physicians all over the world and experts on COVID, that social distancing is something which is very necessary to flatten the curve to actually prevent the outbreak of this disease. So what the government here is trying to, I do agree that a 2 feet or a 1.5 feet might also suffice, but there's always a risk in that. And the point here is that we as a government don't want to take that risk, because that risk, I do agree that it could in some ways, in some manners, might affect the tourism industry. I agree with that. But our point here is the safety of our people. Because if we take it lower than that 3 feet gap, we could risk transmission. And as I've stated earlier, transmission is something which we can't afford at this juncture, because tourists would be coming from all certain sections of the world, from the neighboring countries. And as we know, COVID is not isolated or not limited to a particular country. It's all over the world now. We have been safe till now, but that's because of the geographical location. And as the lockdowns all over the world are opening, and when tourism actually starts, which we want it to start, we need to go about it in a manner which protects our country first and our people first. I do believe that tourism is important. I do agree that service is the very base on which our country runs. But my intention as the government mandate, I speak on behalf of the people. And on behalf of the people, I believe that what we can do from the side of government is that we can balance the tourism industry with these certain social distancing norms. And at the same time, what we can also do, the other objective of the government, is to uplift the local industry, the local services under the guidance and of the Commerce Commission, and under the support of the government, to which we can attain a balance between these industries. Right now, we have a 70 to 30% ratio. And if the local industries are not helped, this might even go down further. Our intention is to at least bring up a 60 to 40% ratio at the least. And if we can achieve that, I believe that we'll intend to maintain a balance.
Thank you very much for highlighting the importance of social distancing and how this should be guaranteed, and To this extent, I also believe, and the Chamber would also like to co-align with the instructions by the WHO and international community about the importance of social distancing. However, let me share with you a concern of mine to this matter. So, as you know, the island floor and the shopping space retails at our nation at a really high premium, and it's also taxed accordingly. So I think that the social distancing measures will create a very big paradox. Local businesses and tourism and the tourism infrastructure institutions will be able to open up their services, but because they would serve much less people and they would need to have like a lot of social distancing, there would be arise the need of huge costs for renting the land and the space, which I believe that this would create a very big problem, and not only for the tourism industry, but also for the local businesses, that, as you say, is something that we should protect. So don't you think that these measures would really create tensions and would not allow in the end the local businesses to open, because they will not be able to afford to rent spaces and to rearrange their tables and their shops with social distancing measures?
Thank you so much for bringing that aspect out to the table before me, Reginald. I agree that every measure does have its pros and cons, and we can't view it in isolation, definitely. But as stated earlier, that we need to prioritize somewhere. And the government's priority lies in the safety of people. So regarding the social distancing requirements, I'm afraid that the government can't take the risk of reducing the distance, because that would risk the people's health utmost. What we can do, on the contrary, we can look over this in further discussions. We can take deliberations on this about the taxation system and the rates at which we charge the shopkeepers in the shop for the shopping spaces. We can look on these, and maybe we could adjust a temporary rate for the COVID time, for this era, while we return to a particular stage, a particular level, where the industry, where the economy is somewhere near to stable, where the coffers of the country have been filled to a certain degree, and then we can invoke the earlier tax regime, and we can probably work out a different tax regime specifically for the industry at this time. While, as you mentioned about the local industries, and which very well go along with the goals I've had, I believe that we could provide certain compensations on behalf of the government as well as the Chamber of Commerce to the local businesses that would help them not only, go past these social distancing issues, but also help perform considerably well, keeping in information that there'll be less number of people and the other situations which have arisen during this particular pandemic.
Okay, so to make sure that we are on the same page on that, so social distancing is something that we should have, and if it should be, if it is on place, and if it is decided that the borders reopen, then the government would be willing to to offer taxation benefits and compensation to businesses so that they can really co-align with the measures. Is that right?
Definitely, that's absolutely right, and these particular benefits, the intricacies of them can be discussed over the course of other meetings with the chamber. And as we have been going forward in such a wonderful fashion to uphold our country and raise its prosperity to make it great again, and that's what has been my agenda from day one in this office. And that I'm glad we're moving towards that direction. Yeah, please.
I'm also very happy for that, and I'm sure that we will be able to find a very fruitful solution. And also, we can have, after all, a creative solution that would meet all the fundamentals of our cooperation. So, apart from social distancing, which we agree that should be there, another worry that the chamber has is with the other measures that you have mentioned on the prior weeks regarding the actions that you're planning to implement. So the requirement of the masks For the requirement of masks, the chamber is really concerned regarding the other measures that you have announced on the prior 2 weeks. With regards to the masks, the chamber really considers that with the infringement that they pose to the freedom of expression, to the guests that really frequent our nation for Instagram shots and the beauty of the island, this would be a problem. Also, we have highlighted the problem with the nightclub owners. I'm sure that the government has also noticed the arrests that exist, which are still barred from opening, and the problems with public transport. I believe that these problems that exist would really make difficult the reopening of the nation and the economy. What's your opinion on that? How could we overcome these obstacles?
Definitely. I completely agree that there are certain issues which need to go about them, and the government knows the issues, right? The government have had taken your reports from time to time and have worked on the commission's reports. And so, as relation to let me address all of these points specifically in relation to the mask compulsion. So I won't be reiterating again how important safety is, and recently the World Health Organization also again reclaimed that it can be airborne as well. So I believe that masks is something we cannot forego as a requirement for the safety of our people and the tourists as well, right? As the tourists as well. So from that perspective, as we know that this COVID age, things it's bringing with each other, it's the new normal, right? Like we today sitting here having this meeting on a Zoom platform, this is something which we haven't thought, right? We always used to go to each other's office and simply talk. But right now, this is the new normal, right? This is something which we have accepted. Humans as such are creatures who accept and adapt. It's a simple principle of survival of the fittest. We adapt, and that's why we go along. Simply put, these masks are the requirement. These are the new. And frankly speaking, a day or two back, I saw my brother wearing these masks, and these pretty colorful masks which had patterns on them. And there was this mask with "Go Utopia," and that Utopia is great. And yeah, my government is even thinking about issuing masks to tourists which have emblems like "Make Utopia Great Again" and something like that. And
but
I've
don't
seen
you believe that tourists will not be happy anymore to wear masks? Because this would really, we know that, so if we analyze the data of tourists that visit our country, most of them are of young age. They're quite, they can support traveling in such a luxury destination as our nation. And they really care about their social profile. And we have seen that they upload a lot of pictures on Instagram. And I think that as the status quo shows in most of the countries, and if we follow what the Instagram influencers post and everything, it's quite clear that there is a trend that masks is not something that people on Instagram want. And that's why we believe that of course, we should adjust and everything, but we believe that if we want to protect tourism, wearing a mask and social distancing in Utopia would not be able to co-align with the needs of our tourists. And as a result, don't you believe that there would be a danger that these tourists would not visit our island anymore?
I get your point completely. I get your point, Reginald. I get your point. But as I've said, this is the new normal, and the government is taking safety as its primary concern. And there are certain things which we really can't let go of, right? So mask is important. What we suggest, on the other hand, like while this is the new normal, I agree that this is not something which has been observed. I agree this is something unprecedented. But these masks can also be used as their freedom of expression. They can wear certain masks which they think soothe the status quo. They can wear certain masks which express their feelings. And I believe, the entire world is imposing these measures, like wearing masks, social distancing in all parts of the world. I believe that even if we impose wearing masks in public, where people can, wear mask restrictions, they're not like where they can wear these masks, it's something they'll already be accustomed to. And it won't be very difficult or something very new for them. I believe that even tourists who come from other countries, I think they'll already be accustomed to wearing masks in public. And that's why I think we should go beyond it, go with it, obviously. And we'd also like to consider that right now there's a huge mask industry also coming up due to this COVID pandemic phase, that the creative, colorful masks all coming up. And I believe that gradually, not immediately, the people will take up to it, because what choice do we have? It's a pandemic.
Okay, I totally understand that. I can hear from the tone of your voice that mask is something that you would like to be implemented as a measure for public health. I would like to reiterate my concern that tourists, I mean, I agree with you that, of course, masks should be worn at all times. I also believe a lot that tourists will have a problem with implementing the measures. And I think that if we also see what happened during this summer of coronavirus, there were many incidents that there were parties organized and tourists were not making the masks. So I would like to come up with a proposal for you, if you agree. So let's see what the fundamentals of our discussion have been so far. Social distancing should be there. Masks should be there. People should wear masks at all times when they're in public spaces.
Yeah.
And there is the danger that our tourism might be hurt with these measures, which would be catastrophic for the economy, since we already have a local production surplus of over 47%. And the rates of unemployment have risen alarmingly to over 60%. So I have a suggestion. Utopia. I believe that your government has shown that Utopia is an amazing place and that everything is possible. And this has been really portrayed by your government's organization through COVID, and how the local community has really helped the nation to overcome the struggles, and they are really united. So why don't we make Utopia a paradise and be a bit entrepreneurship to our approach towards fighting COVID? I would suggest that we can examine our invitation to the U2 band, which, in my opinion, would bring unparalleled benefits for the nation. So I would suggest that we can discuss the option of not opening our borders yet, but of inviting this band to the island so that they can rent our nation for a very short period of time, be responsible for the economic concerns, and really take care of all the economic concerns that our nation has, create a record that they want for their new album, and on the same time, we can see how we implement the social distancing measures and the mask wearing, and see what great benefits this measure would have for the economy and for the mental health of our citizens. Would you like to discuss this idea?
So I completely get your point, Reginald. I do. Believe me, I do. And I'm glad you realize the government's stance on the social distancing and masks. And while we are ready to provide tax benefits and discuss a lot of other proposals, so this per se, Reginald, is not acceptable to the government. This per se is not acceptable to me as well. Because
why is that?
I completely understand about the band, and it's a very famous rock band. I do listen to the songs as well. Definitely. I would be happy to, have them come here perform in Utopia and everything when things are better and everything else. We can have concerts. But Utopia is not for sale.
But this is not at all what the question here is. Nobody said that we would sell Utopia to nobody. Utopia sovereignty will be not damaged. We do not want to sell the island. I'm also, as a proud Utopian, I would never want this for my nation. What I'm saying is that we can allow a rock band that's so economically comfortable to come to our island, support the economy, and this way the tourism sector, the businesses will continue rising, and they will not be affected by the coronavirus. And after the post-COVID Corona era, we would be a nation that would be really, really economically more affluent, and it would be able to really have a very prosperous future. And let me say some things about this idea. As you know, our economy right now is having like a very big problem with its foreign exchange, which is what really keeps generates the utopian economy going. So the YouTube band coming to the island and staying here over a period of time and recording would bring would bring the forex back from disaster. And what would happen is that as a result of this action, the local tourism and the hospitality industry will really benefit a lot and profit for years to come. And let me give you one example. Have you watched the series or heard of the series Game of Thrones?
Yes, I have heard the name. I've not watched it. I've heard the name. It's pretty popular, I guess.
Yes. So Game of Thrones was very successful. Is very famous, and as famous as our band is. And they have filmed their episodes in countries like Croatia, Northern Ireland, and Iceland. What has happened is that after the episodes in these locations have been filmed, these areas have seen an increase in tourism and in income. For example, according to Forbes, in Croatia, in Dubrovnik alone, there exists more than 4,500 tours about the Game of Thrones. So it is what I want to say is that such a decision will not only help Utopia be able to cater with its economic struggles right now, because as I mentioned before, U2 will really take care of any immediate economic concerns of the country. What it will do is also ensure and guarantee that we will have a very prosperous future.
So
aren't these benefits great?
I agree. I get your point, Reginald. To the agreement part, I'll be coming. I get the point. I definitely get the points, and I'm happy that as a proud utopian, you're working in all directions to help our country to achieve its great status again. So, what I would like to state here completely is that Reginald, the shooting of Game of Thrones in these particular countries, which and due to that they've attained popularity, certainly that's great. And as I said, it's absolutely fine that we can get this band, YouTube band, later at a point of time, or maybe when we're developing and come and give some performances. But what's not acceptable to the government at hand is that the agreement here is about renting the country, and that is something which we feel is very problematic per se. Because while I do completely realize that it'll be great, people will love it, and they'll like it, and there'll be increases. The particular lines of renting the country is something which goes against my very principles. It's
I'm
something
very sorry, Marlene, that if this made you feel uncomfortable, and it was not at all in my intentions to suggest something that's against your principles. But I'm very happy that I know this now, that this is not something that you would like to discuss. So let me suggest something to this point. Since you mentioned that you like the idea of our cooperation with the band, and you like the idea of the benefits and that they come to the island and everything, but the whole problem is the renting of the island. Why don't we do something else? Why don't we sign a contract with the group that they can come to the island for a specific amount of time, and they can, the contract would have all the terms that would be favorable for us, which would be that they would pay for, they would enhance our foreign exchange. They will support the economy by giving us money for the local businesses. We, in exchange, would give them the freedom to shoot their album, and this would be in a contract, which would not be rent. But I suggest that the government, in exchange, could sign in the contract a term that would say that for the period that the album would be shot, the borders will not open to other countries, so that our main cooperation would be with the group. This way, we're not affecting the sovereignty of the country. And on exchange, we are having a group on the island, which will pay for all of our financial problems, and it would give us a great future. What about this idea?
All right. I completely agree. That's about the favorable things, and that it sounds really great. But at the end of the day, when we say that we have been collaborating to this particular band and we are closing borders for everyone else, we are limiting, our ability for the other tourists for a certain space of time just because a particular band is there in our country. And from the
Aren't the
outward,
borders already closed?
it's definitely closed. But when we specify that we are opening specifically for them, it's something which I believe could come across as a statement as problematic. On the other hand, while I do really appreciate your suggestion of the band, and is something the government would like to propose at this juncture, which including your proposal. What we want to do at this particular time, right, as you said, Reginald, that we should go about this recovery in a entrepreneurship fashion. What we propose to do is that we very well know that the tourism space, the hotels and everything, it's huge, it's large. There are too many beds, there are too many facilities, great world-class facilities in Utopia, right? What the government, in a manner, what proceeds to do is that, what if we make Utopia a haven of recovery?
Sorry, I have enough.
A haven of recovery, where people from the neighboring countries, they can come and let's say they want to recover just from the fatigue, from the normal lifestyle which they have been living, right? Just to come here and, and even let's say, even if a certain issue, let's say even they are undergoing treatment or something and they are post the treatment phase, they can just come to Utopia. We'll arrange for the infrastructure from these hotels, which already have world-class facilities. We'll sign MOUs with them that in this particular agreement that we'll be using their infrastructure, and the amount of profits that we receive from these tourists, a certain amount will be given to them as well. And while we do all this, we can also call the U2 band to perform in our country. We open our borders for them. We open our borders for the world, but we open it in a manner as we want to. We open it clearly for them. I know there are a lot of details to this. I know there are a lot of intricacies to be discussed to this. And I completely realize that this is something which is a base, and we need to discuss through a lot of things, but this is something I believe can solve all our problems. We can get the economic relief from this. We can get the popularity from the U2 band for this. We can get these reputation of a recovery country for Utopia from this. And that is what I believe satisfies all of this. And this would also help our local industries develop from the popularity, from the recovery point of view. Since other tourists will be coming, it'll open up a lot of more avenues, just than simply, just getting a compensation from the band or something like this. This is, I believe, a wholesome agreement. And while I believe there's a lot of things to be discussed, I would really appreciate if you, at least consider this, Reginald. And we can obviously go over through the intricacies or the other plans and, mixing up our plans together into something wholesome for Utopia over the other coming sessions.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your creativity, and I really appreciate how you are trying to really accommodate also the suggestions of the chamber towards finding a solution for the COVID crisis. Just to, that as I told you on our prior correspondence, I have a meeting at 12 o'clock at the chamber. So just to make sure that I can wrap up and see that we're on the same page of the meeting, you suggested that we make, so we have discussed the fundamentals of any measure, which would be social distancing and mask wearing. And we have discussed the possibility that the U2 band comes to our nation's field. And you have suggested that Utopia will become a heaven of recovery, and on the same time signing memorandum of understanding with local businesses and people that come to recover. And we would on the same time invite the YouTube band to perform for a certain period of time. So I think that this is a great suggestion. I would like to take it back to me with me at the chamber and discuss it with my colleagues. And I would like to ask you if we can schedule a meeting again over the next 2 days so that we can discuss more onto this proposal.
Definitely, that would be great. Really appreciate it.
Great, thank you so much. I'm very happy to see that we are working towards reaching a solution that really would support local businesses and would have this huge benefit for the future of the country with the YouTube ban. I think this is going to be a very nice
Definitely, Reginald.
idea.
I'm here to make Utopia great again, whatever it takes.
And Utopia, you know, everything is possible. So
everything is possible. It's the utopian
yes.
dream, after all.
So
and
shall
dreams
we meet
don't die.
again?
Definitely, we
Exactly.
shall schedule a convenient time, which is convenient for both of us, very soon in this week.
Would the Monday morning fit for you?
I'll check up with my assistant and let you know by a mail. That works?
Okay, great. I would be expecting then an email from your assistant.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. Have a nice day.
You too. Please take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ananya, I think that was a remarkable round. What a wonderful way to have two people with diametrically opposite positions get that close to coming together to a solution. If this wasn't Zoom and we had more than 40 minutes, I think we really would have had something special there. What are your thoughts on this round? How do you think this went? Any comments?
I couldn't agree with you more, Ramand. I felt this was an extremely engaging round. I knew I was hooked onto my seat at every point of time just because of how strong our negotiators were and how well they handled their interests. So I think one of the main things which I really loved about this round is how both of them displayed a very well, it's a skill which most negotiators take time to develop, but I think is very important, is that they stuck to their interests, not their positions, mind you. They stuck to their interests, but at the same time, they were flexible at hearing out the other person's interests. I think that is something that they handled very well, which is why even while having such a like sort of diametrically opposite position, they did end up coming very close to having a settlement, which was just absolutely amazing. I don't think that they could have handled the situation any better.
I think you're very right, especially with the way the confidentials were designed to really keep people from reaching an agreement, to be honest. It's absolutely wonderful to see this much teamwork and collaboration. And of course, the imagination. I think they really ended it on the right note that said, this is utopia and anything is possible. And they've really proven the skeptic in me wrong. And
But
I think this
honestly,
was wonderful.
Brahman, I think that as much as they did well, there were a lot of areas for improvement. Like especially I feel areas on information gathering, and I know that our advisor and Mr. Tom Valenti would have more critical comments about this, but I feel that they could have improved their information gathering that they did at the start. So not to say that they were bad negotiators or they did not perform well, but of course there is much room for improvement. And I think we should hear from the participants themselves as to how they felt they negotiated, because self-reflection is also a very important exercise in mediation and negotiation. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think while we wait for Tom's thoughts next week, so stay tuned, it's really important to talk to the participants themselves and see what they think they did right and wrong. Personally, perhaps I feel a bit of pacing the round better would have helped. So wouldn't be as much of a rush in the end, but let's see what they have to say. So we'd like to welcome back now Dimitria and Laksh, and of course give them a round of applause for such a wonderful show.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Welcome back, Dimitra, and thank you so much for negotiating today. I understand that it isn't easy, especially with the time zones that we're in. We're all in 4 different places of the world right now, and it cannot be easy to, well, come together on this platform in an online virtual meeting. But now I hand the floor back to you for a session of self-reflection. I want to understand how you felt during the session, what you think you did well, places that you could improve at, and also what were the changes that this online platform brought to maybe your negotiation style and also your preparation?
It was my pleasure, Anania, to participate in this negotiation, and thank you very much, you, Romit, and Excuria International for this opportunity. So in this negotiation, I was acting as a Reginald, and I was negotiated under my capacity as a chairperson of the Utopian Chamber of Commerce. So I will start by discussing two things with you. First of all, how our strategy, how the strategy affected the outcome of the negotiation. And then we'll be talking with things that we could have done differently, and the impact of the online platform through that the negotiation used. So I believe that the negotiation started with us establishing a common ground on the fact that health, the protection of health, and the preservation of the prosperity of the tourism sector are common interests. And I believe that this helped us really go into the second stage, the exploration stage, through which I managed to discover, and the exploration stage helped me realize the needs of the other party, in specific that social distancing and masks are a prerequisite for any deal that would be signed. And also later on, the exploration stage also helped me understand that the idea of renting the island was not possible. So it helped us later be more creative and find out other ways through which we could have reached a conclusion. The order that which we discussed the issues really helped us to establish trust between us and become stronger in dealing with the last point, which was the most controversial. And I believe that this went quite well, as in the end I was very confident that with some adjustments to the offer that was lastly made by the head of the government, we could have managed to reach an agreement. What I could have done differently, I think this would be that maybe we could have spent a bit less time on the exploration stage and on the discussion of the importance of the social distancing and the mask. Because I believe that if we had done that, then I'm very confident that that afterwards we would still have common ground, we would still have the fundamentals for a potential deal, and then we could have reached a conclusion. Even today, there wouldn't be the need for a next meeting. And with regards to the online experience, this was my first online negotiation. It felt quite different than negotiating face-to-face. Of course, face-to-face negotiation has, for me, many positive sides. One of these is the body language, which helps me understand how the other party feels in the discussion, and I think that this is something that I miss. Of course, I could see the upper body of Marlene or else Romit. But I think that the face-to-face would be more sparked discussion. However, I think it was convenient because, as you say, we're in totally different places of the world with different time zones. So I think that the negotiating this case online was the only way that also in the real world we would have managed to reach a solution. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dimitra. And I wish you a great day ahead and a great week ahead, and we will meet very, very soon.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best too, and take care.
You too.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you for being with us today. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Laksh, for joining us today. And I know this was a challenging role to play. It's not easy with somebody with dictatorial tendencies, as per the CI, to engage in a mediation, negotiation, whatever you may call it. So thank you very much for doing so. Could you tell us, what did you think of this negotiation round? Were there any things you would do differently? What were the kind of challenges you faced? Was there perhaps difficulty in working with the character that you had been assigned? And of course, what makes this different from an in-person negotiation? Is there something special that going online brings to the table? Over to you for a tiny little bit of self-reflection.
Definitely. Thank you for the opportunity, Ramit. I completely agree that it was a difficult character to play because, as mentioned, the character has determined tendencies and it's very firm on what it wants to do. But there was this particular line which I used to my advantage that, okay, once the interests of people are aligned, they are ready to, she's ready to collaborate towards anything. So that's what I primarily use. So while I stuck to the ground, to my particular interests. I didn't stick to the position because that was in the best interest of people. That's how I went about it. Apart from that, I feel that, yeah, there could be a few things I could really change. That, first of all, like, I guess I put a little bit more emphasis on the starting issue. We could have come up with a plan earlier. And if we could have, I sincerely believe that we could have actually ended with an agreement at hand because towards the end also, we had almost incorporated suggestions from both the end. So we could have had partial or a preliminary agreement as well, rather than just, a blank check and some agreement of that sort. So I believe that is something we could have done. That's one. Apart from that, if I were to think about an in-person negotiation, definitely it's very different. Here I have to pay a lot more attention towards what I speak and use that as a medium to comfort the person and, put at ease and trust building and all those aspects of negotiation. And like, whereas in in-person, like, the body language plays a lot of role, which kind of diminishes here. It's all about the speech. It's all about the voice modulation a lot here. That's there. The connection difficulties are definitely a problem because it interrupts your flow. But they say, it's the new normal. So you got to adjust to it somehow. And yeah, that's all. That's more or less it. I think it was a fun round. I could have done a few things differently, as I mentioned. But yeah, overall it was pretty good. Yeah. Love the part.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having the patience and the time to do this. This was, of course, 4 different people from 4 different places across the world. So thank you for finding the time for it and of being such an important part of the D&D podcast with ECI. We really appreciate having you with us today.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, Laksh,
Thank you
and
so much.
have a very safe and fun week ahead.
Same to you. Thank you so much.